This podcast is for general information purposes only and is not intended to create a physician-patient relationship. It is also not intended as a substitute for diagnosis, treatment, and/or advice by a qualified healthcare provider. Please promptly schedule an appointment with a qualified healthcare provider if you have a healthcare condition that has not been diagnosed or that is not under the regular care of a healthcare provider, or you're considering changes to your diet or exercise routines. Please refrain from self-diagnosis and/or self-treatment. And if you have a medical condition situation that may be urgent, then you should immediately report to the nearest emergency room.
And flat tires called jobs.
Hey everybody, welcome to Reach a Place Called Success with Dr. J. In a moment, Claire will be adding in here. She just sent the request, so let me put her on.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Got to turn up your volume here. I got to hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
It's great for me. How about you?
Yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, good
Good
morning.
morning.
Thanks for coming on.
Yes, it's great to be here. It's nice to see
As
you.
usual. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you
Okay.
not?
Yeah. Now I just need to make one small adjustment.
Okay.
There we go. Well, again, welcome to Reach a Place Called Success. Dr. J. I'm here with Claire Este McDonald. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So this is part 4 of our 4-part series with Claire. The first 2 parts, we talked about how we have this mutual history. Unfortunate, I guess, and fortunate becomes part of us, where we both had back injuries, ended up having back surgeries, but we were able to overcome these things. But all of these things play a large part in who we are. The other component, though, that you were able to bring us up to date was your full, unbelievable story of perseverance with the breast cancer. And how, survival for something like this is a matter of sometimes not just, giving up. It's a matter of just kind of going and allowing to surrender. And that's a real poignant way to kind of explain what you had to go through. But it was really just that going in from part 2 to part 3, that Ayurvedic piece where, it was your self-awareness that allowed you to even become aware that there was something wrong, and led you to the diagnosis from a breast cancer standpoint. And that persistence with your Ayurvedic treatment and lifestyle through your treatments with the breast cancer, which in your words, essentially put out your internal fire, your digestive fire, and allowed you to use Ayurveda to build that fire back up, not only to survive, but, look at you now, persevere to the point where, you and I can talk about the future and be excited about what is to come.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, the one thing that you and I have talked about that we want to kind of use this time and opportunity is to let people know what is the next step, not only for you and I, but for anyone that's interested in Ayurveda, to understand that although they may be dealing with this health condition or they're just looking for improvements in a healthy lifestyle, it's not this huge mountain that's in front of them that they should be concentrating on. It's starting very small routines and understanding that really the way that we have mutually agreed that is the best avenue to start and end healthy lifestyle is talking about food, because food is medicine. It's used quite often as a term that is really applicable in this particular case, and that more so than not, the gut and the health of the gut to be able to absorb the nutrients of all of the food that we eat is critical. So, with that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today, first and foremost, about the gut health, how people can, use and understanding food is medicine, and applying principles of an easy routine and what they should be doing from a day-to-day standpoint regarding the food that they eat to optimize absorption of the vital nutrients and get the most out of building up that digestive fire that we had talked about.
Yeah, there's a lot we can do to really take, I don't want to say control, but have more of a relationship with our own health and well-being. There's a lot of simple things that we can do on a daily basis. Now, just to sort of start with the microbiome or the gut, like the gut is our own microbiome, just like, the trees have their interconnectedness. And if we were to look under the ground, we would know that all of the trees actually have a network of communication that keep each one of the trees healthy. They have a community that keeps them healthy. Within our own gut, we have that same kind of under the world interconnectedness that keeps things healthy in our own system. And there are things that can really wreak havoc that interfere with that. So like stress, we know that stress is a major impact on our health and well-being and how we process and assimilate our food and the way things are broken down to absorb nutrients. And, things that are simple ways of like coming back to building this fire back in our gut are like things like starting our morning with hot water, lime, and honey. It seems like a really simple thing, but the first thing that we do in the morning actually sets a tone for what's going to happen and unfold for the rest of the day. So in Ayurveda, we look at the morning time as a time to like clear the channels, to like get circulation going, to wake up in the morning. The body has a lot of inertia and we need to get our system going. And it doesn't mean doing things like having a super vigorous exercise, like just moving the body is a huge way of stimulating circulation and getting our gut moving, getting our channels to start flowing. Excuse me. Taking a hot shower in the morning, first thing before we do anything else, even before we eat food, is a way of stimulating the channels to open once again, to have better circulation. Then, having the hot water, lime and honey. Something simple that like, why lime versus lemons? Because limes they have a special impact on the way that they help the body break things down. And so what we're always combating with is how strong is our digestive fire? And also like, what has our diet and lifestyle led us to? Like, how has that sort of accumulated in our system? And what I mean by that is if we're not breaking our food down, it accumulates, like toxins and residue accumulate in our system. And we know that by like looking at inflammation and having, high blood pressure and diabetes and all these diseases, we can link back to knowing that somewhere along the way, there wasn't good circulation or there wasn't good enough metabolism to break things down. So they end up accumulating in our system. And where they accumulate is in the gut. And that's what affects the microbiome, is that we can be taking in food that's perfectly healthy and wonderful, but if it's not appropriate for our body and for our state of digestion, we are not able to actually get the most from that food. And so, it seems complicated, but it actually isn't. When we're paying attention, we have a much closer, like our finger is on the pulse in our own body to tell us exactly what it is that we need to do. But we live in a society where we're told certain things, like this is what's healthy, this is the fad, this is what's healthy, you should do this. Now that might work for like 20% of the population, but that doesn't work for everybody. And so if I get on board with this new fad, but I'm not paying attention to how I feel and my diet, my lifestyle, the things that I need to take care of in my life, I have to consider these things. And then, okay, I take in a substance and I have to begin to feel as to whether that's actually working for me. The signs and symptoms are there if substances are working for us, but we're usually preoccupied. We usually have something else going on where we're doing more than one thing at the same time. I know I catch myself all the time because I have a busy life, and I'm not always putting my attention on food as medicine, food as nutrition and as medicine. I may have a desire in my mind to eat something, but then my body can be saying to me, not a good idea. You know, we know how often that happens. So it's one of those things where it's a big conversation, and having the tools to be able to navigate and know, like, well, what question should I be asking? What direction should I go in? What question should I be asking about my own health and well-being? How do I get the support I need? And knowing how to get the answers that I'm asked, the answers to the questions that I'm asking. We have to be around, so you have to get in the neighborhood of people that do have this information. And Ayurveda is one of those, I want to say it's one of those hoods. It's one of those neighborhoods where we look at the person as an individual. We look at health as an individual process. And understanding how you're put together is the most important part. And we had discussed this earlier on in the other podcast about, you know, understanding your Ayurveda constitution, how many, like the elements, the 5 elements, and how they play out. That's very individual for you. The qualities of those elements and how you interact with the life around you, Mother Nature, the people in your life, your work. And these are very important things. We're not going to be able to cut out stress, but we have to begin to understand how to navigate with it and not be drawn to things that cause more stress. I'm sort of chuckling as I say that because, you know, this past week has been an absolutely crazy week for me. You know, my mom has been ill, and she's had sort of a major infection in her body. And in the back of my head, all I can think of is her microbiome. So everything that I'm doing right now is to like support her in having to go. She has to go on antibiotics. She has to take care of things where there's Western medicine is incredibly profound in helping her body get what it needs in order to fight off an infection. But then there's also Ayurveda, though, that can help her stay healthy and strong, that goes outside of having medications. It goes into the food element. It goes into like, what's her mind focusing on? Mm-hmm. How is her mind while she's going through this process? Because that's the part we underestimate is the mind goes everywhere. Our mind has the power to be very creative and extremely excited and could go into the world filled with desire and create things. But at the same time, we can use all of that power to sabotage ourselves in the way that we focus our attention.
How important do you think your mindset is actually when you're consuming the food? How do you consume the food that you eat? Taking time, those types of lifestyle things, how important is that, do you think, to absorption, everything from a gut health standpoint and food?
Oh, it's huge. This is one of those things that's quite simple. Just sit down and eat a meal without doing anything else. Like not being on your cell phone, not be on your computer, not answering emails, focusing your attention on the wholesomeness of the food. So, you know, we can have the best meal in front of us, but like having an argument or having had an argument like 2 weeks ago when we're still having the argument inside of our head, we walk around with that fight, with that feeling inside of us. And then everything we do from there, the energy of our emotion is what we keep taking inside of ourselves. So the food could be beautiful, but if we're filled with anger while we're eating it, we're essentially digesting anger, or we're digesting our grief, or we're digesting, even happiness gets in the way. It's like when you sit down and eat a meal, just put your attention on the smell of the food. Using our sensory organs is a powerful way to stay present to like what's right in front of us. You see the food, you smell the food, you taste the food, and that starts the digestion process as well. Because you can smell something and I mean, I love the smell of chocolate croissants. And when I smell chocolate croissants, I'm already, digesting that in my gut, knowing like, wow, I'm right there with the croissants.
Yep.
But like, I remember that I make a joke about that, but I make like, why do we cook food? Because heating up food helps to deliver the aroma. It's like there's more aroma in food that's warm and coming right out of the oven. We know that food is more digestible because we've cooked it. And anytime we put anything in the oven or heat it on a pan, we're putting fire into the food. We're helping that food get more digested outside of the body so that when we take it into the body, our own gut doesn't have to work so hard to break that down.
Yeah, the classic example is if you've ever taken any type of like wine tasting course, I mean, you spend half the time smelling and looking at the wine before you even taste it, to understand that, there's a lot of complexity, a lot goes into making wine, right? And then how long it sits on the shelf really plays a big role. How long it's been sitting out in the open air. But then the other component from a digestive standpoint is that when you smell and you use the aroma of the wine or the food that you're eating, it starts stimulating salivary glands. And we know from a digestive standpoint, food starts to break down and the absorption starts as soon as you put it in your mouth. It's not always just down into your gut. The gut is not only thing that your gut starts in your mouth, essentially. Mm-hmm. So, having that process where you slow things down and allow your body to do what it does best in the best element, I think it is key. But going back to the one thing that you were talking about, not to shed too much light on it, but this is the issue that I always run into. It's a classic example too, where your mother has to go on antibiotics. This is absolute. She has an infection, and antibiotic is necessary for this most of the time. And the reality is that we do know very well from evidence-based medicine is that antibiotic that she takes plays havoc on the microbiome of the gut. And, that takes a long time to rebuild. So the unfortunate thing is that people, are reluctant with the Western medicine to use everything that they have, but sometimes it's necessary. Mm-hmm. And the reality is there's this dynamic, unfortunately, that you just have to navigate. And to have the best gut health before, to help prevent infection from occurring is huge. And then if, God forbid, you do need to go on some type of medication like an antibiotic that is known to disrupt the microbiome, that you're doing everything you can also from a nutrition standpoint to build it back up so that it doesn't have as big of an impact. And that's really where it goes back to using all the tools in the shed. Why just rely upon one versus another is really what it comes down to.
Exactly. We have the best of both worlds. I mean, having found or discovered or created antibiotics, right? It changed how long people live. I mean, It's one of those things. Creating a penicillin was a monumental moment in being able to help people recover from very simple things that could become very huge things. And so we have these tools and we don't want to throw them away, but we want to know how, okay, at this time we need to do this. There's something that needs to happen to promote longevity and healing. And then during this time though with my mom, so all of the things that I am doing for her, I'm helping her to actually maintain the health and well-being of the rest of her body, which is dramatically going to be affected by antibiotics because it is going to send sort of like it's going to stop her microbiome in a certain kind of way from behaving in the most supportive way, because the antibiotics and the microbiome will compete with each other right now, because antibiotics are a very hot substance. They're very, in Ayurveda we say they're very ushna, and the body knows that. So this is why digestive fire goes down when we take antibiotics, because if they were both in the system at the same time, the fire of our own gut and the antibiotics, this is how we get an ulcer. This is how we would end up being in trouble. So the body knows, like, let me back off right now. You're taking this. But when the antibiotics go away, now we have taken them away, and we have to call the fire back. We have to actually do things that promote the microbiome back into its natural state of proliferation and expansion, which is our immunity. And so there are things that, right now my mom, she may be craving, like, maybe a cheeseburger or something. She's not really craving a cheeseburger. She's not really even hungry. But if she was, I would be like, no, that's not the best time to have this, because the antibiotics are doing something powerful in your system, but you still don't have that really good digestive fire there. Yeah. So it's a little tricky at first. It's like, well, what do I do? And it's always best to notice, are you even hungry? If you're not hungry, why are we eating food? And then noticing, well, how hungry am I? And when you begin to notice, like, we're in the summertime and our hunger is going to go down because the heat of summer and the humidity are actually creating this agni outside of the body, or digestion outside of the body. If you put something on the counter like fruit, in the summertime it breaks down pretty quickly because of the heat.
Sure.
Well, that same thing is happening outside of the body right now. So the body is getting this message to say, well, I don't need to have as much of a digestive fire during the summertime. So this is where we have to really pay attention to, like, well, my mind wants something because it's summer and summer's fun and it's a great time of year and I like to do all these things in the summer. But our bodies may be saying, you need to pay attention to me and realize that I'm not really hungry for that, or I really don't want to be doing that. Things like, I've had to slow down a little bit in the way that I exercise, because in the summertime, it's hot, and the body is telling us, don't push yourself. Don't force yourself into doing things that you would have more energy for in the wintertime. It doesn't mean that we never do these things again. It means we have to pay attention to the seasons. Are we still there?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we had a little blip. But so it's the most important piece is to really, and this is where yoga is so powerful. Yoga, meditation, exercise, just going for a walk, things like that, where it's not about the activity. It's about where is your mind while you're doing the activity. Yeah. And moving and exercising and yoga and these practices are there to help us to become more and more present to the sensations in our bodies, so that we're aware of, like, oh, wait, I'm getting a sensation. I'm having a sensation. I want to be mindful that maybe I'm pushing myself too hard. Or the same thing, getting a sensation when you're full and you don't need to be eating any more food.
Right. Yeah, I get that. So one of the things that you and I had talked about beyond kind of the routines and the basic things that you can do in the morning with a hot water and lime, is the fact that, everything that we eat essentially affects us. But there's certain things that affect us more so than others. And one area in particular that is a lot of interest, especially from an Ayurvedic standpoint, are herbs and spices. They have huge medicinal value. And this is also very common from a Western standpoint, that a lot of the evidence that is out there, which is a very interesting thing. I've been doing a lot more reflection and reading, and we talk about evidence-based medicine. Well, the bottom line is that there's a lot of evidence, a lot of research that is out there about food. And it's one of those things, though, that is just not presented very well or at all with even medical school or residency. So one of the things that you and I had talked about is that, this is a great way for us to kind of get the most bang for our buck when we talk about the health benefits of food, and using the gut as that entryway, both literally and figuratively. And, I would like you to talk just briefly about, the herbs and spices that, you and I have talked about, being able to, with our next step here, with what we're doing, maybe give people a little bit of awareness of what we're considering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, herbs and spices, again, we know about how there was a big race in the world in the 1400s, right? All about finding the spice trade,
Yes.
opening up the spice trade to India, because, it quite literally did prolong life. Herbs and spices, they dramatically affect our microbiome because they improve our digestive fire. And this is why we use them. All of these herbs and spices have been there, for as long as we can remember, but accessing them and using them, it depends on your culture. Some cultures are very familiar with them. It's something
Absolutely.
that is very ingrained, but I can only speak for myself, living in America, it's not something that is as part of the fiber of our being, unless you come I come from an Italian Irish descent, and I grew up around herbs and spices. I wasn't taught the medicinal uses of them. That was a passion that I found
Yes.
over time. But simple things like most people have garlic. Garlic in their refrigerator, they cook with garlic. Garlic is one of the most phenomenal, it's a bulb, and it is filled. It has 5 of the 6 tastes. Okay, so what that means is it's almost a perfect food for digestion. And it's incredibly profound for the lungs. So during this time of COVID, I'm taking in garlic every single day. I crush it up in my food. I make sure that I heat it, and I put it in during the summertime in ghee or in olive oil so that my body is able to access it. Cooking it makes it more digestible. Things like ginger. Ginger is revered for health and well-being. It's revered for nausea. Now, nausea is a side effect of when we don't have a good digestive fire. So the body is letting us know, don't put anything down. I'm nauseous. Wait for this to clear. And when we bring in substances like ginger, fresh ginger or dry ginger, you can feel how hot it is on your tongue when you take it in. You know,
sure.
Wow, this is a serious substance. Well, when that gets down in your gut, it starts waking things up. It starts burning off things that have been lying around in the gut. So that's what promotes the microbiome. It's because it starts that fire process, and fire can burn off impurities. Things that, a lot of people have in the drawer, cinnamon. Put some cinnamon, you wake up, have some, toast in the morning, have some cinnamon on your toast. Salt, pink Himalayan salt in particular is really wonderful because it doesn't affect your blood pressure. So adding a little bit of that, and I say a little bit because a little bit does go a long way. Black pepper, you know the impact of black pepper when you're having a lot of congestion in your sinuses. And also herbs. I'm a big fan of thyme. Thyme is one of these wonderful aromatic herbs, and herbs all have volatile oils in them. So when we chop them and we cook them up, you could just smell your hands and know wow, that substance went from something that might seem a little bit shy and quiet. And then you start chopping it up and you realize, wow, there's a lot more to this. Well, the volatile oils and what's in herbs and spices is it's condensed fire because they have been sitting in the sun. Think about these substances they grow in the earth. So they have a root system. They're being nourished through a root system. And then they're basically cooking in the sun. And we take in that prana. We bring that prana into our bodies, and we're essentially taking in the life of the plant and all of the elements that plant was exposed to. So this is how we start to provide more in health and well-being to our own bodies. We are absorbing the energy that the plants took in. And so, other things like the summertime, mint is cooling to on a hot day, but at the same time, it stimulates the digestive fire. It stimulates the microbiome. Same thing with basil, parsley, cilantro. These are all things that you go to a farmer's market and they're sitting right there. And to cook them in your food, to even have them before your food, right? You could, we have a culture that loves smoothies, and I'm not a big smoothie fan, but in general, you could take some of these herbs and you could blend them up. You
Sure.
could blend them up with some celery. You could take something like that in the morning. And that's something that's going to really help to clean out your system so that we have clear channels. You have better circulation, better blood flow, better oxygenation,
Yeah.
which makes your mind work better. And when your mind works better, we make better choices. So we start taking in more clarity from these herbs and spices, and then it impacts the rest of our choices.
Yeah. I think that sometimes people are overwhelmed. They don't know how to use or the full use. They get stuck. I only use garlic for this. Or mint is, I never buy it. I only have it when I go to a bar and it's in my mojito or something like that. So sometimes people don't quite know the full benefits or the use of even spices or herbs that you and I would pretty typically use, let alone there's thousands of them out there that people aren't aware of, that depending on where you are in the world, maybe using them on a day-to-day basis and be getting such great health benefits from it. And I think that that's one of the things that you and I had talked about being able to shed the light on that. You and I both have a love of cooking. And one of the things that you and I had talked about that I would love to come to fruition is that you and I just cook together. And that could be something that we do that I think that a lot of people would have a lot of interest in. Not only the cooking benefits of whatever we make, but the use of things like an herb or a spice, and then counterpoint with you from an Ayurvedic standpoint, the benefits of that herb or that spice. And then I can present, the evidence that is out there from a health standpoint that is published and the quality of it. There, as I found, just with evidence-based medicine that talks about medications or a treatment of some sort, there's different qualities of research that's out there. And it's one thing to say, oh, it's healthy to eat X, Y, or Z. Well, what is that based on? So you talking about from an Ayurvedic point of view, and then I'm presenting kind of the benefits and the evidence that and the quality of the research that's done regarding that herb or spice, I think could be an interesting way to, have fun also presenting, something that people know about herbs and spices, but are very leery about how they're used and how they can integrate them into their daily routine and not only using them for taste, but also for health.
Yes. I mean, I think that, this collaboration that we've been talking about and cooking together is helping people to get into their kitchens and feel empowered that they not only can cook food, but they can cook food that's delicious.
Right.
It tastes really good. It's good for you, but at the same time, you have enjoyed it, because that's a huge component to digestion, is that there's a feeling of love and passion put into your food where you're really committed to your own health and well-being, and you feel empowered to connect to things that maybe you were never taught how to use that, or never knew that you could use it quite like this. And
Sure.
Having flavors, we're exposed to the cooking shows, and I love cooking shows. I think they're crazy, and most of the time I watch them for entertainment because
Right.
I wouldn't eat most of the combinations that they put together. And that's the thing is well, how can you have a cooking class or be exposed to something where you realize, no, these combinations, they work together, and what they do inside your body is this. So if this is what's going on, you don't have to just eat food that feels like it's, because when you say food is medicine, it can seem like, oh, I'm going to just eat really kind of healthy food. And that sounds great. But cooking food and having it be food as medicine, but at the same time realizing, no, this is fantastic. And this is actually how you feel fabulous. Because everything that I do in my kitchen is like, I'll take a cooking magazine, like something very trendy, very hip, and I'll go in it and I'll take a recipe and I'll make that recipe Ayurvedic. So it's still got all the, the colors and the brightness, but I'll tweak something where, maybe it calls for raw pepper. And I'm like, no, I know that if I cook that food is going to go a lot further in my body. It's going to do something that's a lot better. But we have to, this is where we're going to have the opportunity to share these good things.
That's right.
With everyone, with all of you out there, to know, like, okay, you can take this and you can make it fantastic.
Right. The understanding of the why, like, why are you using this? And then be able to understand how. Because sometimes eating something raw is good, but sometimes eating something raw won't do anything for you. So understanding that complexity and that relationship, I think, is going to go a long way. I'd love to do that. Be a really fun time.
It's the next step.
It is. The other thing that you and I had talked about is getting people more involved, because inevitably this is fun for you and I, but we want to answer people's questions and help as many people as we possibly can. So one of the things that we want to put out to anyone that's listening is to also reach out to us about issues that they're having and understand that, maybe even setting up a support group for different things that people are dealing with, whether it's breast cancer or if it's an autoimmune disease or if it's just overall general health, setting up something that people want to talk to each other, share their experiences, but then also ask questions. And then we can dive a little deeper, maybe even have special guests on, to try and talk about things that people are dealing with and to try and bridge that gap. Like, that's my intent all along. What are they dealing with their doctor versus what are they seeing on social media? Where is the confusion, and how can we try and do something to bridge that gap and clarify things?
I think it's a hugely important thing. I know that when I was going through my all of my treatment, there's a period in time where the doctors tell you, like, we're going to be saying goodbye to you, and when you're done your treatment, and you're going to pretty much be on your own. And you hear that, and they say that, and then when it happens, you feel like you have just walked into a dark hole. Like there's, no answers. You don't even know, like, why is this happening? And I feel like, especially even with this COVID and this social isolation, is that we're getting further and further away from each other. And community is a very important thing. And to be able to discuss, like, talking about what you've gone through, we have to get the story out. What's important is we can live in a story forever, but as soon as we start talking about it and we start, like, processing it, the story no longer holds you captive anymore. And so there are a lot of things that we can do when we come together. We can create magic with this ability to just start talking to each other and figure out, well, what is actually happening? And we're listening. And here's some tools that are going to help you to feel empowered again, because the biggest piece is feeling empowered. Because when stuff starts happening and it feels like the roof is coming down on you, and you don't feel like you have your health, and you don't know how to discuss what's happening, it just gets worse and worse and worse. Because again, that stress suppresses our microbiome. It suppresses our ability to express ourselves in the world. And so, we've both discussed this, our dreams and desires as people in the healing world, not just the health world, but the healing world, is that to take into consideration that somebody is a whole person. You're not just a body, you're not just a mind, you're not just like this person over there that has a job. You're a complete being. And, that's really at the genesis of this, is like, how can we have a bigger conversation where you actually ask a question, you share what's happening with you, and maybe we have the resources to point you in the right direction where you can get to what it is that you need.
Right. And just not to be a passenger in your health. It's not just your doctor doing something to you and you're better. you can play a role in that. And how you play a role, it's empowering. That's what we want to try and do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, we are here for all of you. We can set this up whatever way you guys would like. So reach out to myself, reach out to Claire, and let us know what you guys want, because what we'll do is we'll set up, a dialogue in some fashion. We will set up a support group. We can record this and then have other people be able to listen to it and then join in later on. And if there's questions that we can't answer, then we'll be able to at least direct you or bring someone into the support group that has those answers. This was such an exciting, 4-part series with you. And the most exciting part of it is the fact that it's just the beginning. As you and I had talked about, the best thing that's come out of this is our friendship and our relationship. And the reality is that I think that we're onto something really good here, and we want other people to be not only part of it, but be a part of how this is going to develop down the road. We can say, boy, doing a cooking class is fun. You and I just, sitting in at a kitchen cooking is going to be fun. But the people that we talk to, and that missing piece of why is food medicine and how to use it is an interesting take that I think that a lot of people would like to witness.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I know what it's done in my own life, and that's, I'm sitting here being able to have this conversation because I know.
Of course. You're living proof.
Yeah, I'm living proof of it. Exactly.
Yes. All right. So this will conclude this podcast of Reach a Place Called Success. I think this will be on Instagram Live for the next 24 hours, but I've recorded it and we'll try and convert it so that it'll be available for everyone on podcast, whatever you listen to. And I thank you so much again, Claire, for everything. And,
thank you, Jay.
I so much look forward to the next step. And everybody stay tuned. Let us know. I can be reached direct message, obviously, through Instagram, or by email, reachaplacecalledsuccess@gmail.com. And you, Claire, do you have an email, I would assume, for people to reach out to?
I do. It's Claire Este Yoga@gmail.com, or you can go through my website, claireandgregor.com, and you can reach out to me there. Awesome. And I'm also, part of it is like I teach yoga classes. You can go online and take a class with me at Down Under Yoga, and just find a way to stay connected and feel like you have a community. And Jay and I are both here, and just reach out and stay connected.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Caution signs called family, and flat tires called jobs. But if you have a spear called determination, and an engine called perseverance, with insurance called faith, and the drive to make it, you'll reach a place called success. Can you hear me? Now one you have to get to you them. Yo, star, this a murder. Man, I get to you for life.